Well, this evening, Nueces County Commissioners decided to table a discussion about possibly selling the old Nueces County Courthouse. Right now, the nonprofit Ed Rachal Foundation is the only bidder. They reportedly want to buy the old building to demolish it. Our Taylor Alanis is live tonight with an update on that. Taylor?
Yeah, Joe, the Ed Rachal Foundation wasn't at today's meeting, but the Nueces County Historical Commission was pleading with commissioners to not sell to that bid. Now, as part of an agreement with the Nueces County Historical Commission for a $1.5 million grant, the county can't demolish the building until 2027. Back in September, now retired Judge Lloyd Neal asked the Historical Commission to lift the covenant to allow the courthouse to be demolished, but he was refused. At today's meeting, people took to public comment, each talking about how tearing down the old courthouse would be detrimental to the city and county.
And so they've done a lot in this community. It's just that this is one I happen to disagree with. What they're wanting to do is to tear down the courthouse.
Although she says she's appreciative of the Rachal Foundation, Nueces County Historical Commission Chair Anita Eisenhower says she would hope the old courthouse would find a bidder that could restore it, and that once the 8 years is up, that they'll be willing to restore it until then. In the last year, the Rachal Foundation had purchased the HEB house and the Castle House on Ocean Drive, as well as the Frost Bank building. They just demolished Hacienda Records last week, and the item that they were discussed on, again, commissioners tabled that decision to discuss it further, but they did allow for public comment. But again, they tabled that, so they will be discussing it at their next commissioners meeting on March 13th. For now, live at the Nueces County Courthouse, Taylor Alanis, 3 News.
Okay, Taylor, thank you for the update.